Hi, I'm Michael Patrick O'Hara, and this is Tip of the Iceberg, the international podcast where we investigate the value of dreams from the public's perspective. If you've ever experienced hypnagogia or sleep paralysis while falling asleep or waking up, you'll want to listen to this episode titled Dreams as Survival. This recording is taken from the short documentary I directed back in 2021 on Clodagh Dunlop, a policewoman from Belfast, Northern Ireland. 6 years earlier in 2015, Clodagh suffered a severe brainstem stroke, which gave her locked-in syndrome with complete body paralysis for over 3 months. With only her eyelids for movement, Clodagh explains it was like being buried alive, and soon discovered the only world she was comfortable in was in her dreams.
How do you mark the reason why I'm still alive today? Because I dreamt of it. I always feel that when I was locked in, my dreams, they were real. Like, they were experiences that I lived at that time when I was dreaming them. It wasn't like a dream. It was like, that was real. But when I woke, it was like, this couldn't be real. When I first woke in intensive care, it was a really surreal experience because I was sure prior to my stroke that I had died. For a brief time, I was confused as to what was happening, but I remember a nurse came over to me and she spoke to me and she said, Clodagh, you're in the Royal Victoria Hospital, Belfast, and you've had a stroke. And I remember I wanted to ask, well, what type of stroke is this? Because nothing moves. And in my head, I was screaming to her, I'm 35. I couldn't possibly have had a stroke. I'm fit and I'm healthy. So in my head, I was screaming frantically at her to tell me more about what had happened. And she walked away. I can only describe it as being buried alive. Sometimes I even would describe it as it felt like I was an astronaut and I've been cut off from my spaceship, floating off into outer space, screaming for someone in the world to hear me, but nobody could hear me. And I had all these questions and thoughts. When I was upset, and I would cry, and the tears would roll down my face to my round behind my ears. I couldn't bring up a hand to wipe them away. And I would, when that happened, I could almost bring myself into a dreamlike state of remembering the times I'd been in the sea swimming and the salt had got into my eyes, and I could spend like hours until someone noticed that my eyes were, there was something wrong, and clean them. Like, you forgot sometimes that you were locked in. It was like you'd be in your dreams and you're so happy in them, and they felt so real, or they were real. And then when a nurse would wake you, it was almost like a shock. I think police officers are we're a unique breed of person or people. Like, when we're doing our training in the police college, you're taught about the flight or fight, when you're faced with a threat to your survival. And I knew I had a choice to make. It was like, I can either lie down to this or I can fight with everything I have. And pretty much right from day one, when my partner realized that I was there, I had in my head, I'm going to fight this. He came and visited me in intensive care, and I remember he approached my bed and he said to me, Clodagh, are you there? And I was furious. I thought, what do you mean, am I there? How can I answer you? I can't move. And then it was like a miracle happened. He said to me, Clodagh, if you're there, can you blink once for yes? And I remember in that moment thinking, well, I know my eyelids have been opened and I've moved them, but I don't know if I've any control over them. And it was like, I remember being absolutely terrified in that minute, but thinking, I really have to get this right. I have to let him know I'm there. And I closed my eyelids and I was so happy that I controlled them. And I
Oh,
remember
sweet.
closing my eyes so tight and counting one, two, three, and opened them as wide as I could. And when he realized, he was like, "I'm so happy you're there. I knew you
Oh,
were there. You're too
sweet.
stubborn." And then we developed a system of blinks: one blink for yes, two for no, three for I love you, and four for you're a moron. No, I could hear and see everything, and it's amazing when you can hear and see everything, but you can't move a muscle or can't speak because you become this silent observer to the world around you. And I would say the one thing that really struck me after having locked-in syndrome was that I think people are inherently good. I saw so many very kind acts by the nurses and by people visiting family, and it was like no one really understood I was there and I was watching and I could hear everything, but I was like, gosh, people are actually, I think as a police officer, I'm kind of cynical, but I realized then that people are actually very kind and very good. Prior to my stroke, I'd been in Namibia and I went skydiving, and daily I would just move myself into a dreamlike state and just dream that I was falling out of the aeroplane and I could feel the wind rush on my face and my arms flap,
Beautiful.
and I was completely normal and so happy. But it was almost like I had the time to allow myself to drift into a dreamlike state. Like I think now I'm back to work and I'm busy in life, and I find that I couldn't bring myself into a dreamlike state, but it was like because I had the time and I nothing else moved, only my eyelids, that I could force the dreamlike state. Um, like I know that if I didn't force the dreamlike state, that I'd be dead now. The greatest thing that we all take everything for granted. Um, every morning I can get out of bed and put my feet on the ground. I give so much thanks. I remember going into the office one Monday before Christmas, and one of my colleagues, I said, "Good morning, how are you?" And she said, "Shit, it's a horrible wet day." And I was like, "Oh, wow." I was like, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Wonderful, I'm alive." I walked out of the house this morning and I could feel the rain on my face and I gave real thanks. I was so happy. And then on the radio going to work, they were playing Christmas music. So I sang the whole time, and here I am, and I'm so overjoyed that I'm here. And she was like, "You're a strange fish." I thought to myself, well, how do you mark the year anniversary of the day you almost died? It's like, well, you don't go for dinner and drinks. That really doesn't just cut it. That's so I went skydiving. Now I have to say that my GP or my doctor had said absolutely not. You've had a brainstem stroke, but I managed to persuade my consultant into signing the medical forms. So on the year anniversary of my stroke, I threw myself again out of an aeroplane, and it was wonderful. It was like I made my peace with God on that skydive. It was like I'd been angry, I had a stroke, angry for what I'd been through, but just in that moment, falling out of the plane and free falling and my suit flapping and the cold air rushing to my face, it was like, that was a moment that I said, thank you God, I'm so glad I'm alive, and thank you for giving me a second chance at life. And it was the best thing I could ever have done to mark the anniversary.
Thanks for joining us today. You were listening to Clodagh Dunlop from Belfast, Northern Ireland. She is the author of the book A Return to Duty, remarkable story of how a young woman fought her way out of locked-in syndrome and recovered against all odds. Clodagh can be reached at Clodagh Dunlop Beating Locked In, all one word, and hashtag Beating Locked In. Clodagh continues today to work on behalf of the Stroke Foundation in Ireland and supports and gives hope to those who suffer with locked-in syndrome. Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to Michelle Irving for the musical score in this episode, and Pearson Ross for our intro music. Thanks very much. This has been a Waking Dream production. Copyright 2023.